Karen thought destroying my retirement lawn was just harmless fun until she found out what really happens when you mess with an electrician who knows exactly how deep concrete foundations go. For 3 straight months, this entitled maniac used my corner lot as her personal shortcut. Every single morning, a white BMW X5 came roaring across my $2,000 Kentucky bluegrass like she owned the place, tires screeching, ripping through my irrigation lines, diesel exhaust poisoning my peaceful morning coffee, the sick, wet crunch of shattered dreams under German engineering. I tried talking to her, she threatened me. I put up signs, she tore them out. I called the police, they shrugged and said it was a civil matter. What Karen didn't know was that I had just discovered something very interesting about where my property line actually ended and where her daily driving route began. One strategically placed concrete bollard later, her $80,000 BMW was transformed into expensive modern art. Criminal charges followed, divorce papers showed up, public humiliation spread like wildfire. But that was only the beginning of how this psycho neighbor completely destroyed her own life. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone kept destroying your property? Drop a flag emoji and let me know where you're watching from. Let me take you back to how the American dream turned into a 3-month nightmare. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 52 years old, a union electrician who spent 30 years installing power systems everywhere from shopping malls to hospitals. My specialty was making sure things stayed exactly where they were supposed to stay: concrete foundations for electrical poles, underground cable systems, permanent installations built to survive anything Mother Nature could throw at them. After decades of overtime checks and holiday bonuses, I finally bought my corner lot paradise in Millbrook Heights. My wife Sarah, married to me for 26 years, was fighting early-stage Parkinson's. Her world was slowly shrinking. She couldn't drive long distances anymore. She couldn't tend her beloved garden. This lawn was supposed to be our sanctuary, our place to heal. I dropped nearly $3,000 doing it right. Premium Kentucky bluegrass, underground irrigation with electrical timers I wired myself, soil amendments so rich they smelled like chocolate cake. Every morning I'd step outside with a cup of coffee, listening to the soft hiss of sprinklers, watching something beautiful grow from nothing. Then Karen Whitmore decided my property was her personal racetrack. Imagine your worst Cha-Cha Mustafa nightmare, then add a BMW and multiply it by psychopath. Karen was 48, with hair highlights that probably cost more than most people's car payments and an attitude sharp enough to curdle milk. She lived in the neighborhood's biggest McMansion, Vegas Casino meets suburban excess, with her husband, Derek, owner of Whitmore Construction. Here's the kicker: Derek's company built half of Millbrook Heights. Karen drove a white BMW X5 with the license plate Karen W, because subtlety was apparently illegal in her world. The first time I saw tire tracks ripped through my corner lot, I assumed it was an honest mistake. Deep ruts carved into grass that hadn't even fully taken root yet, the air filled with the smell of torn earth and burning rubber. Day 2, same tracks, same time, same deliberate destruction. By day 3, I installed a security camera. Bingo! Every morning at exactly 7:47 a.m., Princess Karen came flying around the corner, slammed the gas, cut straight across my property to save herself a 30-second detour, then sped off like she was late for a royal appointment. The footage was crystal clear, perfect evidence of someone who thought rules were for little people. So I walked over to introduce myself like a civilized human being. "Excuse me, Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Marcus, your new neighbor. I've noticed you've been cutting across my property." "It's a free country," she snapped, not even looking up from her flower beds. "Maybe don't plant so close to the road if you can't handle a little traffic." My electrician brain immediately started calculating load-bearing requirements. "Ma'am, that's my property. I have survey stakes." She spun around with a smile that belonged in a horror movie. "Are you threatening me?" she said, sweetly. "Because my husband built this neighborhood. I'm on the Cha-Cha Mustafa board, and you're about to learn how things work around here. I'd be very, very careful about making accusations." The way she said very twice, slow and deliberate, like she was explaining physics to a 5-year-old. As I walked back home, my work boots crunched against the gravel driveway, each step sounding like a countdown. Sarah watched from the window, worry clear in her trembling hands. That night, I pulled out my electrical code books and started researching. 30 years of installing permanent infrastructure had taught me something Karen clearly didn't understand. When you pick a fight with someone who specializes in making things absolutely immovably permanent, you'd better be damn sure you're standing on solid ground. Because I was about to teach her the difference between temporary inconvenience and permanent consequences. And Karen Whitmore was about to learn that when you mess with an electrician's retirement dream, physics always wins. The shriek of her brakes was better than my morning coffee. She sat there for a full 30 seconds, probably seeing stars, then floored it anyway, her engine roaring like an angry bear. Tuesday brought the same light show, but this time she leaned on the horn like she was announcing the apocalypse. The sound bounced off neighboring houses, curtains twitched, faces peeked out, trying to figure out what kind of chaos was erupting at 7:47 a.m. On Wednesday, I added a professional private property electronic surveillance sign right where she couldn't miss it. The smell of fresh metal and vinyl took me back to job sites where proper signage prevented accidents and lawsuits. That's when Karen officially declared war. Thursday night, I'm settling in for the 11 o'clock news when my security system starts chirping like an angry bird. I pull up the camera feed and there she is, Karen, dressed head to toe in black like some suburban ninja, systematically kicking over my landscape lights with the enthusiasm of a toddler having a meltdown. The infrared camera caught everything in stunning detail, her face twisted with rage, her designer shoes smashing into $800 worth of equipment, and the exact moment she noticed the little red recording light blinking back at her. Here's where my electrical background saved me. I didn't just install lights, I installed a backup battery system, something I picked up from years of hospital emergency lighting work. When main power gets cut, the backup kicks in automatically. So while Karen was busy destroying my primary lighting, my secondary cameras stayed live, capturing every kick, every muttered curse, every second of deliberate vandalism in high-definition glory. Friday morning brought an official Cha-Cha Mustafa complaint in my mailbox. Excessive lighting, disturbing neighborhood tranquility, creating safety hazards. Signed by Karen Whitmore, Cha-Cha Mustafa treasurer. The paper felt cheap between my fingers, just like her arguments. I called my insurance company and filed a vandalism claim. Then I called Tony. "Tony, you beautiful genius," Tony laughed in his thick Brooklyn accent, power tools whining in the background. "This crazy broad's been collecting enemies like baseball cards. Half the neighborhood's been in here complaining about her." That afternoon, Tony introduced me to Mrs. Patterson, 78 years old and sharp as a brand new wire stripper. She'd been documenting Karen's reign of terror for 2 years, keeping detailed notes in a little spiral notebook with the dedication of a professional engineer. "She filed complaints about my bird feeders," Mrs. Patterson said, the warm smell of her homemade chocolate chip cookies filling the shop. "Says they attract vermin and lower property values. Last week, she tried to get my mail carrier fired because he walked across her lawn to avoid her sprinkler." But here's where everything shifted. While Karen was playing Midnight Vandal, my insurance investigators showed up to assess the damage. These guys don't just look at broken lights, they inspect everything with the thoroughness of a building inspector. When he started measuring distances and checking property lines with laser equipment, he stopped at my corner markers. "Mr. Thompson," he said, adjusting his device with the precision I recognized instantly, "you might want to get a professional survey done. These property markers look significantly off." A metallic taste of anticipation filled my mouth. Karen had just handed me something bigger than a vandalism claim. She'd handed me the key to her entire operation. That night, I started researching concrete bollards with the same methodical focus I'd used my entire career. Permanent solutions require permanent foundations, and that investigator's comment about my markers kept me staring at the ceiling all night. 30 years in electrical work taught me one rule. When a professional with precision instruments says something's wrong, you listen. Monday morning, I called Pete, my old union buddy who'd switched to commercial surveying after his back gave out from crawling through too many conduits. His gravelly voice and the faint smell of cigarette smoke through the phone pulled me straight back to old job sites. "Marcus, you paranoid son of a—" Pete laughed. "Yeah, I'll squeeze you in. Union discount." Before Pete could arrive, I did my own digging. The county clerk's office smelled like old paper and industrial floor wax, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry wasps, the same electrical hum I'd heard in every municipal building I ever wired. What I found in those dusty files made my hands shake with rage. The original 2019 survey showed my property line running a full 12 feet further east than the current markers, and the real smoking gun, an amended 2020 survey signed by Derek Whitmore, licensed contractor, with a note about correcting measurement errors for municipal compliance. Correcting errors, my ass. Derek literally moved my property line to give his wife more room to drive. Wednesday, Pete and his crew arrived with equipment that made my laser level look like a toy. The metallic clicks and sharp scent of spray paint felt familiar. Measure 3 times, install once, document everything. "Jesus Christ on a cracker, Marcus," Pete muttered, double-checking his readings. "You own 18 more feet than those fake markers show. This whole corner NASCAR Karen uses, it's been your land the entire time." Bright orange survey paint carved a new reality across my lawn. Karen wasn't just cutting across my property, she'd been driving over nearly 20 feet of land that legally belonged to me, every single morning for 3 months. Criminal trespassing, plain and simple. Then Pete dropped the bomb that made my electrical brain light up. "See that fancy retaining wall?" he said, pointing to Karen's masterpiece of stone. "Whole damn thing sits 4 feet onto your property. Probably cost 15 grand. Been illegal since day one." That electric satisfaction hit, the same feeling you get when you finally trace a short after hours of testing. Every piece of the puzzle was locking into place. That evening, Karen stormed across my driveway in her designer heels like a one-woman invasion force. The sharp crack of stilettos on concrete sounded like hammers on steel. "What the hell is this?" she snarled, gesturing to the survey flags. "You can't just move property lines because you're having a breakdown over normal traffic." I handed her Pete's official survey report, the heavy paper crackling with authority. "Mrs. Whitmore, according to this licensed surveyor, you've been criminally trespassing on my property every day for 3 months, and that retaining wall, also on my land." Her face flickered through colors like a malfunctioning traffic light. "That's impossible. Derek built this entire development. He knows exactly where every property line is." I smiled, sharp. "Oh, he absolutely does. The original 2019 survey proves it. The mysteriously corrected 2020 survey, with your husband's signature all over it, doesn't." Instead of backing down, she stepped closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You stupid blue-collar piece of trash. You think you can come into our neighborhood and make demands? Derek and I decide who belongs here, and people who cause problems for us, life gets very, very difficult." Her perfume mixed with the metallic taste of pure fury in my mouth. This wasn't about grass anymore. This was about power. After she stormed off, I made 2 calls, one to my insurance company's legal department, the second to a concrete contractor I trusted. Because some problems don't need temporary fixes, they need permanent solutions. And Karen's warning wasn't a threat, it was a preview. But here's where it got beautiful. Karen's husband, Derek, hadn't just moved my property line, he'd been systematically stealing land from 6 different homeowners over the past 4 years. a carefully constructed spiderweb of fraudulent surveys that netted his family nearly half an acre of prime real estate. "Look at this," Pete said, laying the overlay comparisons side by side, his finger tracing the differences between original and corrected surveys. Mrs. Patterson lost 12 feet of her backyard. The Hendersons lost 8 feet along their side lot. Even the Garcias, brand new to the neighborhood, lost 15 feet before they'd finished unpacking. A metallic taste of pure rage filled my mouth. This wasn't about my lawn anymore. This was systematic theft disguised as clerical corrections. But my electrical background had taught me something Derek clearly never learned. When you build on stolen ground, everything becomes unstable, and I was about to introduce a whole lot of instability into Karen's perfect little world. 30 years of installing electrical foundations had given me knowledge Derek never anticipated. I knew exactly how deep concrete bollards had to go to withstand vehicle impacts. I understood load-bearing calculations, stress distribution, and, most importantly, precise placement, the kind that turns a speeding BMW into abstract art. That afternoon, I met with real estate attorney Sarah Kim. She examined Pete's survey with the intensity of a detective studying crime scene photos, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead with that familiar electrical hum. "Mr. Thompson," she said calmly, "you have grounds for a lawsuit that could bankrupt the Whitmores. Systematic property fraud, municipal corruption, civil rights violations under color of authority. We're talking criminal charges and 7-figure damages." The sweet smell of victory was intoxicating. But I had a better idea. "What if," I asked casually, "I wanted to install a decorative concrete bollard on my property, purely for aesthetic reasons?" Sarah's smile sharpened like a pair of wire strippers. "Decorative landscaping features are perfectly legal, as long as they're within your property boundaries and meet municipal safety standards." That evening, I stood at my corner lot with a tape measure, calculating the exact spot where Karen's passenger side wheel crossed every morning at precisely 7:47 a.m. The math was beautiful. Physics plus precision equals permanent problem solving. My electrician training taught me that the most elegant solutions look deceptively simple. One decorative concrete bollard professionally installed to commercial electrical pole standards, positioned exactly where momentum and stupidity would meet at 25 miles per hour. 5-foot foundation, below the frost line, 4 half-inch rebar rods cross-braced every 18 inches, quick-set concrete rated at 4,000 psi, the same standard I used for hurricane-resistant electrical foundations. Wednesday brought the legal team together. Sarah coordinated with a surveyor willing to testify about fraudulent boundary changes. My insurance investigator documented every piece of evidence. The conference room smelled like fresh coffee and expensive legal pads, but the air crackled with coming justice. "The beauty of this," Sarah explained, spreading documents across the table, "is decorative landscaping is protected under municipal aesthetic codes. As long as your bollard meets standards and stays on your property, Karen and the Cha-Cha Mustafa board can't touch it." But I wasn't relying on legality alone. 30 years in electrical work taught me to always install backups. Mrs. Patterson organized what she proudly called the Millbrook Neighborhood Defense Committee, official sounding enough to make Cha-Cha Mustafa members nervous. Tony's hardware store became our headquarters. Neighbors poured in with stories, evidence, and support. "That woman has been terrorizing us for 4 years. If you stop her, I've got my full backing." The Garcias offered security camera footage. Jim Martinez volunteered his landscaping crew. Even the mailman, harassed repeatedly by Karen, agreed to keep watch. Thursday afternoon, I finalized placement using a laser transit borrowed from Pete. Vehicle speed, impact angle, center of gravity. The calculations were poetry written in math. The bollard would sit 8 inches inside my confirmed property line, exactly where physics and entitlement would collide at 25 miles per hour. 5-foot foundation below the frost line, 4 half-inch rebar rods cross-braced every 18 inches, quick-set concrete rated at 4,000 psi, the same standard I used for hurricane-resistant electrical foundations. Friday, Michael's crew arrived with a concrete mixer roaring like a mechanical dragon. The excavation went 5 feet deep, dark soil opening like a vault. Rebar formed a steel skeleton capable of stopping a freight train. "This thing'll be here when your great-grandkids are old," Michael said proudly. The bollard was beautiful, reinforced concrete, granite cap, and a small bronze plaque. Maple Grove Memorial Garden, established 2024. To anyone else, it was tasteful landscaping. To Karen's BMW, it would look like divine intervention. Over the weekend, the concrete cured. I repositioned cameras, put Sarah Kim on speed dial, every detail accounted for. Monday morning, Karen returned from Palm Beach at exactly 7:47 a.m. I watched from my kitchen window, coffee steaming, as her white BMW screamed around the corner on its usual path. What she didn't expect was the concrete mushroom of justice waiting for her. Impact was perfect, calculated, glorious. Metal screamed, tire exploded, German engineering met American mathematics. The BMW lurched sideways, radiator hissing, suspension collapsing in surrender. Karen's scream followed. "What the hell is that?" I stepped onto my porch, calm and satisfied. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitmore. That's a decorative garden feature." She accused, she screamed, she called the police. Officer Rodriguez arrived, measured the bollard, checked the survey. "Ma'am, this is private property. Driving here is criminal trespassing." When Karen called Derek, his voice came through the speaker, panicked, distracted, distant. "Karen, I'm in the middle of a code enforcement investigation. Handle it yourself." That was the moment her world cracked. No charges, driver error, private property, insurance responsibility, Karen Whitmore. As the tow truck dragged her BMW away, she whispered, "This isn't over." She was right, but she didn't understand something yet. The first battle already belonged to physics, precision, and knowing exactly where your property line ends. Karen's promise that this isn't over wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of total war. And like most desperate people backed into a corner, she was about to make the kind of mistakes that turn petty property disputes into felony charges. Wednesday afternoon, I was replacing a sprinkler head that had been destroyed during Karen's automotive encounter with my bollard when Mrs. Patterson shuffled over with the urgency of someone carrying nuclear launch codes. "Marcus, dear, you need to see this," she whispered, holding up her phone with the pride of someone who had finally mastered modern technology. "I recorded Karen on the phone this morning." The video quality was grainy, the audio was crystal clear. Karen paced her driveway like a caged animal, screaming into her phone at a volume that suggested the person on the other end was either deaf or hiding. "I don't care what it costs. I want that thing gone by Friday, and I want it to look like an accident." Mrs. Patterson's arthritic finger swiped to the next clip. "This one's even better," she said. Same day, different call. Karen's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow carried farther than her shouting. "Make it look like emergency utility work. Gas leak, water main break, whatever. I'll handle the paperwork with the city." The metallic taste of victory filled my mouth. This wasn't just vandalism anymore. Karen was planning municipal fraud. Thursday morning marked phase 1 of Karen's master plan. A yellow excavator rumbled down Maple Grove Avenue with the authority of legitimate construction equipment, operated by a man who looked like he'd learned heavy machinery behind razor wire. I made 3 phone calls. Gas company? No emergency work scheduled. Water department? No maintenance planned. Electric company? All crews downtown. Strike 3. Karen's emergency utility work was about as real as her property boundaries. Years of electrical work had taught me something critical. Real emergency utility jobs require permits, signage, and coordination between multiple departments. Fake ones only require money and stupidity. I positioned myself at my front window, phone recording, as the excavator rolled toward my bollard like a mechanical gladiator entering the arena. The operator hesitated, kept looking around.
He knew this wasn't legitimate. Then Karen appeared. Designer boots, perfect hair, absolutely no idea how construction sites work. The smell of diesel exhaust mixed with her aggressive perfume as she pointed at my bollard like a general ordering an airstrike. "Right there," she snapped. "Make it look like a gas leak repair." That's when I called 911. There's heavy machinery operating on my property without permission. They're claiming emergency utility work, but no utility company authorized it. The police response was faster than Karen's BMW ever was. 2 patrol cars and a supervisor arrived just as the excavator's bucket scraped my bollard, throwing sparks dramatic enough for every camera now recording. Officer Martinez stepped out with the exhausted expression of someone who had dealt with Karen before. "Ma'am, do you have permits for this excavation?" Karen's attempt at innocent confusion deserved an award. "This is emergency utility repair," she said sweetly. "Gas leak detection." "Which utility company?" The pause was painful. "The city sent them." Officer Martinez radioed dispatch and confirmed what we already knew. No permits, no leaks, no authorized work. Then the situation escalated beautifully. Faced with serious charges, the excavator operator decided self-preservation was his best option. He pulled out his phone and played a recording. Karen's voice echoed clearly through the speaker. "I'll give you 10,000 cash. Just make it look like an accident. I want that concrete monstrosity gone." The sound of handcuffs snapping shut around Karen's wrists was even better than the BMW crash. Charges stacked quickly: fraud, conspiracy to commit vandalism, impersonating utility authority, criminal trespassing, attempted bribery. And then came the real bombshell. The operator revealed Derek Whitmore's involvement: fake utility letterhead, forged municipal work orders, detailed instructions. This wasn't impulse, it was organized. As Karen was loaded into the police car, she leaned toward me and hissed through clenched teeth, "You have no idea what you've started, you pathetic blue-collar piece of garbage." But I did. I'd started the dismantling of a criminal enterprise that had terrorized Millbrook Heights for years. That evening, local reporter Janet Williams knocked on my door with the look of someone who could smell a Pulitzer nomination. The monthly city council meeting that night was standing room only. Nearly 200 residents packed into a space designed for 50. 3 TV stations, cameras rolling. The municipal building buzzed with fluorescent lights and long suppressed rage. Karen arrived 20 minutes late, flanked by a legal team that probably cost more than my entire retirement fund. And that's when the real reckoning began.
Her lead attorney, Richard Pimpton, carried himself with the smug arrogance of a man who had never lost a case involving blue-collar defendants. The smell of expensive cologne mixed with legal desperation followed Karen's legal team to the front row like a toxic fog. City Council Chairman Bob Mitchell called the meeting to order with the nervous energy of someone who knew he was about to witness either justice or an absolute disaster. "We are here to address property boundary disputes and municipal code enforcement practices in the Millbrook Heights development," he announced. Pimpton stood as if he were addressing the Supreme Court instead of a small-town council chamber. "Chairman Mitchell," he began, voice dripping with manufactured authority, "my client has been the victim of a targeted harassment campaign by Mr. Thompson, who deliberately constructed dangerous obstacles along public thoroughfares with the intent to cause property damage and personal injury." The words sounded impressive until you realized they were complete nonsense wrapped in expensive vocabulary. "Furthermore," Pimpton continued, his tone sharpening into outright condescension that made my electrician hands itch for wire strippers, "Mr. Thompson's so-called decorative bollard represents an attractive nuisance and a serious public safety hazard that the city has an obligation to remove immediately." Councilwoman Sarah Gonzalez leaned forward, her expression calm, focused, someone who had actually read the case files. "Mr. Pimpton," she said evenly, "are you asserting that a decorative landscaping feature installed 8 inches inside private property boundaries constitutes a public hazard?" That's when Pimpton made his fatal mistake.
The placement of that obstacle, he replied confidently, was clearly calculated to cause maximum damage to vehicles following the established traffic pattern through the area. The murmur that swept through the crowd was immediate, low, rolling, electric. Pimpton had just admitted on the record that Karen's established traffic pattern involved driving across my private property. I stood, calm and deliberate, the confidence of a man whose case was built on measurements and physics, not theatrics. "Chairman Mitchell," I said, "may I present evidence to the council?" Attorney Sarah Kim took over seamlessly. The presentation she prepared would have impressed NASA engineers. Property surveys, security camera footage, municipal code citations, a timeline of coordinated criminal activity that exposed Karen's operation as systematic property fraud disguised as neighborhood complaints. The first exhibit appeared on the large screen, Pete's professional survey, crystal clear. The collective gasp when the true property boundaries appeared was audible throughout the chamber. Karen hadn't just been trespassing, she had been stealing land from 6 different families for 4 years. "As you can see," I explained, using the laser pointer as the red dot danced across the overlays, the Whittemore family systematically altered recorded property boundaries to benefit themselves while filing fraudulent complaints against neighbors who questioned or resisted their actions. Faces in the audience shifted from confusion to realization to anger. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a neighbor dispute. It was theft. It was abuse of municipal systems, and it had been happening in plain sight. But the real showstopper was the security footage compilation. 3 full months of Karen's BMW deliberately cutting across my property. Clip after clip of her nighttime vandalism, destroying my lighting system. And finally, the excavator incident, complete with crystal clear audio of her offering cash bribes for criminal destruction of property. When Karen's voice blasted through the town hall sound system, "I want that concrete monstrosity gone, and I want the old man to pay for it." It was like a dam breaking. Spontaneous applause, loud cheers, someone in the back yelling, "Lock her up!" Councilwoman Patricia Williams raised her hand for silence. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said calmly, "do you have anything you'd like to say in your defense?" Karen stood as if she were ascending a throne instead of facing accountability. Her voice carried the same entitled fury I'd heard in my driveway, only now it echoed through a room packed with witnesses. "This is a conspiracy," she screamed, perfectly styled hair shaking with rage. "A blue-collar conspiracy designed to destroy successful people who built this community. They're jealous of what Derek and I achieved." The silence that followed was devastating. In that moment, Karen exposed herself to over 200 residents and 3 rolling TV cameras. That's when FBI agent Patricia Rodriguez stepped forward from the back of the room, calm and unmistakable, justice in human form. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Agent Rodriguez with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We've been investigating municipal corruption tied to construction fraud. Your case has provided critical evidence." The color drained from Karen's face instantly. "Your husband's construction company," Agent Rodriguez continued, "has been altering property surveys across 3 counties, aided by municipal code enforcement officers, including members connected to Chacha Mustafa, who provided cover in exchange for personal favors. Estimated property theft exceeds $2 million. Council Chairman Mitchell brought the gavel down hard. "The city of Millbrook officially recognizes Mr. Thompson's property rights and issues a formal apology for municipal enforcement abuses. All citations and fines against Mr. Thompson are dismissed immediately." Karen's final meltdown belonged on reality television. "You'll regret this. This whole corrupt town will pay for protecting this pathetic loser." As security escorted her out, the applause lasted longer than her marriage would. 6 months after the town hall that ended Karen Whitmore's criminal empire, my morning coffee tastes better than ever. Justice, it turns out, has a flavor all its own.
Karen pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges, avoiding trial but losing everything that mattered. 18 months in federal prison, 3 years probation, $53,000 in restitution to victim neighbors whose land she stole. Her McMansion sold well below market value, every dollar consumed by legal fees and victim compensation. Derek received 3 years federal time, permanently losing his contractor's license. The FBI investigation triggered by my little Ballard uncovered a property theft network spanning 4 counties, involving 17 municipal employees and over $3 million stolen from working families. Sometimes small acts of resistance topple massive criminal empires. But the real victory wasn't watching Karen in handcuffs. It was watching my neighborhood finally become the community it was meant to be. I donated my entire $38,000 settlement to create the Millbrook Neighborhood Justice Fund, offering free legal resources to residents facing contractor fraud, property disputes, or municipal corruption. Mrs. Patterson became our volunteer coordinator, applying the same meticulous documentation skills that helped bring Karen down. Our first case recovered $22,000 for the Martinez family from a roofing scam. The second stopped a developer from stealing playground land from the elementary school. The third protected elderly residents targeted by predatory contractors. Knowledge shared becomes power multiplied. Sarah's transformation has been the most beautiful part of this journey. Once the stress ended, her Parkinson's symptoms stabilized. She planted an herb garden beside my famous bollard, where rosemary and thyme mix with the quiet satisfaction of victory. Her laughter, missing for months, now fills our backyard during evening barbecues with neighbors who've become true friends. My bollard achieved a kind of fame I never expected. The bronze plaque now reads Millbrook Memorial to Community Justice, established 2024. Electrical contractors bring apprentices to see what happens when technical knowledge serves moral purpose. Property rights organizations use our case for training. Law schools teach it as a grassroots legal strategy success. Tony's Hardware became our unofficial community center, the smell of WD-40 and shared problem-solving filling the air. Monthly workshops now cover property rights, evidence collection, and basic legal procedures. Turns out our neighborhood was full of teachers, nurses, accountants, and craftsmen whose combined skills could solve almost anything. The Garcia family opened Ballard Cafe, our weekly gathering place for exceptional coffee and Maria's empanadas. Dave Henderson started a neighborhood watch that eliminated petty crime. Even our mail carrier now stops for coffee and community updates. My proudest achievement is personal. I've become the neighborhood's go-to resource for property rights and municipal advocacy. My electrical background gave me the tools, but my neighbors taught me that expertise matters most when it serves justice over profit. Last week, a young couple with twin toddlers moved into Karen's old house. They're kind, respectful, eager to contribute. Their contractor started installing a fence a little too close to Mrs. Patterson's line, and she's already documenting everything with her signature precision. Some lessons bear repeating. Some communities are worth protecting. The bollard still stands in my corner garden, wrapped in Sarah's flowers and surrounded by the laughter of children playing freely. No bullies left to rule. Every morning, coffee in hand, I'm reminded that the most permanent solutions begin with someone willing to dig deep foundations for justice.